Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We just finished Thanksgiving this week, and before that, we still had a meeting, our weekly accountability call, and we had a surprise guest, I guess you could say, Mikey, someone that you've worked with already, a lender with Nexa Mortgage. His name's Mark, and he popped in unexpectedly, but he got quite a few questions from the group and had a lot of great information. There were some things that he was going to go away with to get a little bit more information for a couple of the members. How did you think all that went?
Yeah, I've had great experience working with Mark Simon, next, especially for Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh market. The one thing I like is I like shopping the rates as for Dion style, and he's had no problem with me shopping the rates. And I've shopped for the last one I did, well, actually the second one I did, I had shopped the rates with maybe three different lenders, and he had come up as the best. And then for the previous one I did, I had shopped the rates and he was the best. So it's good just to see what options are available, and that's why I decided to go with him.
Yeah, I think in the past too, we've talked because we both have been working with Brian Bielstein at Neighborhood Loans as well. And I know, like you said, you ended up going with Nexa, but because their rate was a little bit lower, but they were still pretty close. I think the service that we've gotten from both of these guys has been really great. I think you can't lose no matter who you go with. And the nice thing about it is that once you get established with either one of them and they know your overall situation, they can help you get better information. And I was thinking that when we were talking earlier, because a lot of people in the group had questions for Mark, but and he had a lot of great information for the general questions, but to really dive into someone's personal situation, I think you need to reach out and start that relationship. Don't hesitate because they can't, I mean, they can give you general information, but it may not really pertain to what you're going through specifically with your debt to income ratio or your assets, or like in our case, we have some vacant units, so that affects what we can do right now. So I just want to let people know not to be afraid to reach out and get it started on that relationship so they can get the best information for their situation.
And I wanted to thank you because it was your network. You were the one who had, I believe it was your realtor who had recommended Nexa Mortgage, and that's how I was able to connect with Mark. If it wasn't knowing you and your resources, you've helped me out with lenders from Brian to Mark, and we highly recommend either of them. So it's just good to have those available.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought at the time to ask our agent for contacts in the lending field. And it was weird the way I found out because she's in, I'm talking about Alicia Sierra in St. Louis. She's with EXP, but she belongs to a St. Louis investor Facebook group. And I was just scrolling and happened to see her name, and they were talking about Nexa. And that's how I ended up reaching out to them too. And that's how I got the name for you as well. So yeah, this networking these days is super important, and it's helped us a lot already. We had a couple new people join us, just like we usually do. One new investor from the Chicago area, and one of our longer time friends is also in the Chicago market. So hopefully they'll be able to connect. She already has some properties, and she's been investing for a couple of years now. Um, so that these connections, the networking is working out pretty nicely with the weekly calls. I'm glad to see that. One of our other friends, we got back on the subject of insurance, and he was saying he just bought a duplex that was tenant occupied, and he was talking about leases and the fact that he needs to get his tenant to get insurance for one of their dogs. I guess it's one of the different breeds that not all insurance companies will insure. And he was going to have the tenant get insurance for his pet and also name him, the investor, as an added insured on the policy, just to protect him too, in case the dog got into it with another dog or bit someone or things like that, that he'd have a extra layer of protection. You've shown me a list in the past of dog breeds that are excluded with your insurance provider. I think it's pretty general across the board, but um, there are probably 10 or 15 breeds on that list. So you need to be careful when you're screening tenants or your property manager screening tenants for just to make sure, because we had someone ask us too if they could have a pit bull on one of our properties, and I had to refer to the insurance right away, and that was one that the insurance wouldn't cover. So we weren't able to take that tenant at the time.
Yeah, and now when you see in a lot of the ads, it's always small animals, small pets. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll see like under 40 pounds. It seems to be one of the criteria, things like that. Um, yeah, and there a couple of other things came up as far as leases go. Again, with the same investor there. He's in Georgia, but he was saying he's going to be self-managing, and when he was creating his lease, he borrowed some of the wording or paragraphs from the lease that was in place when he took over, because it was being managed by a property management company. So he kind of copied and pasted some of the things off their lease into his new lease too. There were a few different topics talked about after the lending session. I think one of our friends in Detroit has a property, or actually he's looking at new properties, but he was wondering about our thoughts about replacing carpet with LVP right in the beginning. And we had a pretty good discussion about that. And I think the consensus was that depending on the age and condition of the carpet, could it just be cleaned for now and go through another tenant? We've had that come up in the past where the carpets were pretty decent, so we just had them cleaned. We talked about the difference between dry cleaning versus steam cleaning. A lot of people don't know that dry cleaning is an option, but it is, and it's nice because as soon as the carpets are clean, they're ready to walk on. If they're steam cleaned, they get soaked and could bring up a lot of bad odors and things like that. So it takes days to get rid of that. But we try to have them dry cleaned. If we're going to try to reuse them one more time or whatever it might be, we'll try to get them dry cleaned. And that seems the cost isn't much different as far as what I've experienced so far. So it's a way better option.
And I remember you had talked to your property manager about that, and they didn't even know that dry cleaning was an option. But when they looked into it, they realized it was a possibility. So it
Yeah,
worked out great.
in that small little town. Yeah, that's in St. Joseph, Missouri. And I guess it's one of the benefits, being in the construction industry. And we have done work on back in the day when there were a lot of foreclosures and stuff, the banks would put out jobs for us we would basically have to go in and do a trash out, remove all the trash, sometimes paint, clean the carpets and things like that. And I made a mistake of getting them steam cleaned once and they smelled horrible. So we looked for a different option and luckily we found one. So I know, and we're in California, but they looked around in that little town and there happened to be a dry carpet cleaner there. So we did that. It worked out
For,
great.
for steam cleaning, how long does the smell usually linger?
Oh gosh, it depends how bad it is. If I don't know if they have cats or dogs or the kids spill a bunch of stuff in the carpet. But after they steam clean, we would have to have fans in the units for like 3 to 4 days. And they stay pretty wet after they're done. So like I said, you can't really just go in and walk around and do stuff. You have to wait for them to dry. But the dry cleaning, they use dry chemicals and it works out really nice.
It seems much more convenient going the dry cleaning route. And that was good when you were talking about the apartments going up on the second floor. About there was, I guess, a tenant in there, a woman, and she was wearing high heels, so they could hear the clacks on the LVP. So maybe some apartment units going up second floor and above, they want it to be carpeted, which surprised me.
Yeah, in the one example that I was giving, we were working in San Francisco in an apartment building, or they were kind of like condos, but they wouldn't allow hard surface flooring in any of the units. They even had carpet in the kitchen, which was kind of could be bad. But yeah, for that reason, just all the noise transfer and things like that. Um, and we used to consider it a lot more when it was hardwood floors. Like you said, if somebody has hard soled shoes on and they're walking around, it transfers really easily. Now, LVP is probably a little less like that because sometimes you'll have an underlayment or they'll have foam on the bottom of the planks and things like that to help with noise. But yeah, if you're, I hadn't thought of it before and we almost took the carpet out of the kitchen, but luckily somebody came by and told us why we couldn't. So that saved us some work.
But
The cost, if you consider it too, the cost is something that we talked about because if you're putting carpet in a unit, typically, say a renter grade carpet is going to be $20 to $25 a yard, which is 9 square feet. If you're doing LVP or laminate, you're talking $6 to $8 a square foot. If it's $8 a square foot, then it's $72 a yard. So it is quite a bit more expensive than carpet. So I think what this investor was thinking of doing is just putting it in the high traffic areas like the hallway, maybe the kitchen and the bathroom, but leave the bedrooms carpet to save some money. And that same investor mentioned to us that he got a tenant finally in his Detroit single family, and they signed an 18-month lease, which was nice for him because that means when the lease ends, it would be spring, between spring and summer, which is a lot better time to turn a unit if you have to in that market of Detroit.
yeah, congratulations to that investor.
Yeah, that's been going on 3 months, I think.
I always like hearing the experience of the first rent check because that's always a memorable experience.
Yeah, I think it was pretty crazy when we got our first one. And like you have mentioned, the money you received for that you didn't really have to put hours in for is really nice. And also the proof of concept, right? Because we hear that all the time that this is how it's supposed to work. But when you get that first check, it just makes it more real.
There's a greater meaning behind the Matrix now.
Yeah. Some of the people in the group got into talking about sewer backups and things like that because um, when a sewer does back up, it can be a pretty messy experience if it backs up all the way into the house. And they were wondering if like a one-way check valve would help in that situation. And I personally don't think it does because a sewer a sewer main like in the city doesn't back up very often. I've never heard of that. The issue I always hear about is when something clogs the sewer lateral, which is the pipe from the house to the street. And when that clogs up, there's not a lot of space. Like if you're taking a shower or flushing toilets, it doesn't take long for those pipes to get full and back up into the house. We have had that happen to us before, and it is a bit messy to get the bad water out, get everything vacuum clean, disinfected, and the company that helped us put big fans in the house to dry everything out. So it wasn't a great experience, but I don't think a one-way check valve would have helped us in that case. So I don't know. And the cost, depending where you put it, a lot of people were recommending to put it near the street, and the pipe is deepest there, so it's going to cost more to do it there. And I think the price ranges we were seeing that night were like $2,000 to $10,000, depending where in the line you put it.
Yeah, in your experience, because I've only worked on check valves on real smaller equipment, like maybe chemical injection pumps. Do check valves fail? Do they like over a period of time, maybe that you see?
I don't think it's too common that they fail. They're usually the ones that we've installed, because here in California, you do have to have like a one-way valve um, in the sewer line for that reason. So sewage can't from the street can't come into the house. They're usually made out of brass or something like that. And the way they're built, they work for well for a long time. Water doesn't usually, water or sewage doesn't usually contaminate them or start corrosion so that they stop working. And it is fairly easy to check because they'll have like a T wherever you put that in, it's in line, but then there's a pipe coming up where you can actually look in there and you can check the valve to see if it's functioning or not, if it gets frozen or something like that. And since we were coming up on Black Friday, a couple of the guys were talking about wondering if anybody was shopping for, any deals for that day. A couple of the guys brought up appliance packages and things like that. And one of the people was saying that they got a better deal buying their appliances through a smaller store than they did when they priced them out at Home Depot. Have you have you done anything like that? What did you think about that conversation?
That was a great conversation, and I liked how he went step by step through his kind of conversation where he begins off where I'm a landlord. He's like looking to add multiple properties. What type of packages do you have that I'm looking to purchase appliances and also looking to purchase appliances for the new units I'm getting as well. So I think starting off that conversation, they realize he could be a longtime customer. And it's also good how Matt talks about it, Lumberjack Landlord, where the maintenance of things, is better to go with a local repair shop or a local appliance store because they are the ones who deal with the maintenance of it. So they could probably recommend a more durable appliances down the road.
And their service is better in the most case. They're able to get to it sooner than having to schedule through Home Depot or Lowe's or someplace like that, where you could be weeks away. I think one of the people in the group mentioned he waited a month to get an appliance installed because it was back ordered or something like that. That's a little bit different than the maintenance issue, but I think you still see the same thing because they have so many customers, and it might take a little while for them to get to you.
And that's a big thing is just shopping because even going to the local store, he was able to get a good warranty rate. It's like 500 for all appliances for 3 years. And that's, when we were talking about it, you were saying that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I think that was a great deal because it only added about 100. If you divide it by the appliances he bought, it was about $100 for an extra 3 years of protection. That was pretty good.
And, this is what Matt Lumberjack Landlord talks about, but the products he recommends is what GE, Whirlpool, Maytag, and because with your experience, I don't know what you recommend as well.
Yeah, that had me thinking because in one of our units, we're going to be purchasing a stove, refrigerator, and a dishwasher. And I need to get with our property manager to make sure he doesn't get LG or Samsung.
Yeah. Yeah, because from what Matt has talks about, it's like you can't replace a part. You have to replace the entire board on the
Right.
unit, and
Yeah.
sometimes those parts are unavailable. So that's why maintenance is so important, and that's something that is just so helpful and so valuable to listen to Lumberjack Landlord because he can give you those types of information.
Yeah. And I think obviously we're not going to be buying the top of the line, right? We want good products. And I think I would be shopping for GE or something like that, Maytag, um, because also the tenants a lot of times don't take the best care because they're not buying the appliance. So, you could spend on a decent, say a dishwasher, you can spend 600 or 700 on a nice model, or you could spend $2,000. But like you said, with all the extra electronics and things like that, they wouldn't just replace one little part. They would replace the whole control panel, and then you might as well just buy a new one. We also got kind of deep into talking about one of the investors that, well, is with you in Hawaii, but invests in Pittsburgh as well. And he was sharing a lot of great information about his first 5 years. I don't think he's all the way through his first 5 years, but we talk about the first 5 years sucking, and he was sharing some of the things that he did in the beginning because he bought a lot of properties at once and how he would do it differently these days. Talked about different moves he's making now to, I guess, moving towards retirement years. He's not there yet, but different things like he's moved out of his primary and is renting it out now. He does have a little bit of experience with commercial real estate. And two, something I didn't know in the beginning or before was that HELOCs in Hawaii are different than the HELOCs we can get in the rest of the United States.
Yeah, from what he was saying, I guess I don't have experience with this, but from what he was saying, the HELOCs in Hawaii, it's good to rotate between banks. So you'll have that introductory rate. Then once it starts turning, you switch to another bank and then you stay on that. He was looking at a HELOC for 290,000, get a 5.9% rate. And if you go over 400,000, there's no appraisal necessary. So that helps. And it's just interesting to hear that type of investor, 14 properties in 2 years. Now he's renting his primary. It's just seeing the level that he's at now. And for me as a new investor, I look to him as a mentor and I wouldn't have started without him. So it's really great just hearing how he started, the challenges he went through. And he always talks about his mistakes, which I try to learn from. But what I learned is you're still going to make mistakes. You can listen to everyone's journey, but you're still going to make your own mistakes. You're going to learn at your own pace. So it was great to hear what he had to say.
Yeah, it is different for everybody. And um, one of the things about the HELOCs there, so he was saying that the rate is fixed for 2 years, and it sounds like the rates are really good compared to what the rest of us can get, and that it was kind of like a revolving thing, right? So every 2 years you just apply for a new HELOC, and they would, if you still have a balance on the original one, they can roll that into the new one and just keep that um, hopefully a really good interest rate going until you can get it paid down.
Yeah, I wonder if in really good appreciating markets, the HELOCs are more favorable just because you have those opportunities. But he also talked about the downsides of the HELOCs, where people will use the HELOC to as their travel fund, or they're just buy a boat, have fun. And in our community, that is red. No, it's like you don't. It's like we always use the HELOC for other investment opportunities, just help you stack and grow instead of getting more into the dark side of the HELOCs where you're using it as a vacation fund or just a go have fun.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common everywhere. The people in this community aren't like that, but the rest of the world, they seem to want the instant gratification, and they'll use it for the wrong reasons and get in trouble, and maybe bankruptcy isn't a big deal for them, but it was for us. It was really hard to go through that, but it was nice that he shared all that information with us. So we had a really good meeting. He was also talking about, because he does a lot of live podcasts and things like that, and he's been trying different platforms. I think he started on Zoom and went to StreamYard or Restream and different things, but he was actually getting a new setup, uh, a Mac, what he called a Mac Mini M4, and did his first live on it today, and it looked like it was going to work out really well for him because he mentioned in where he's living now, his Wi-Fi reception was not as good as where he used to live, but the new system was working well with that Wi-Fi, so that was great to see.
Yeah, speaking of Black Friday, I was just doing a quick scan of all the courses that were available. I know the multifamily strategy that was 20% off. Coach Carson, he had an email blast that was a Black Friday for 145 for two courses, which would be a $400 value. I actually picked that up. And they had a 30% off any course plus seller financing free. That was one. Then there's the all-in education package that's 38% off. Then there's the strategy coaching session from 4,197 to 2,497. I also saw coffee closers, bread investors. They had special Black Friday specials as well.
Oh yeah, you saw a lot of them out there. I only saw Coach Carson's, and I thought even without the discount, his prices aren't bad, I think, for what you get. Even the highest priced one. But if you could pick it up for half off, that now's the time to do it. And I think today's December 1st. I think his special was going until the 2nd. Yeah.
Yes. So it's kind of cool just seeing his courses and it's on Teachable. So I'll be going through that and I can report back how that goes.
Oh yeah, I'll look forward to that. So you can let us know that next week.
Well, I'll try my best. Uh,
All right. Well, thanks again for joining me to do this, and we'll look forward to doing it again next week.
And before we wrap up, got the Amazon link. So if you guys ever go shopping, you don't have to buy what the link sets it up as, but it just helps out for just an affiliate link. As you guys do your own shopping on Amazon, and also got the ORAD shirts with the Dreamcatcher design. February is coming really close, so yeah, pick up
Yeah.
your copy. Got the PayPal link down as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks for mentioning that, and we'll make sure and put the links in the description as well.
Yes, please like, subscribe, and follow.
Thank you. See you soon.
All right, thanks.